Alright, yo, what's good everybody? So it is currently the 15th of September. It is the halfway point in the month and there's a few things that I'm excited for. The first things first is today I actually get my payout from FMS. So here's my trading account. This is my funded account. As you can see, I've made about a $20,000 profit. I actually had to stop trading on this account a few days ago because I was having some issues, but that was solved and I still made 20 grand on top of that. So I'm going to be receiving my 80% profit split hopefully later today. You know, I'll include the payout in the next video probably, but it is the 15th. So this is typically when I go back into the last 2 weeks of my trading journal and I look for the best trade and the worst trade and see what areas I did well in and what areas I did very poor in terms of my performance, so I can continuously improve. So I'm going to be breaking down both of those trades this guys, pretty much all of my trades so far and how my account is doing so far. So this is going to be my personal account, not my FMS account, because I've taken more trades in my personal account. So I've taken about 10 trades, 6 of them are winning trades, 4 of them are actually losing trades, which losses are normal, right? And something that I always emphasize on is don't focus on your win rate, but focus more on the risk reward ratio and squeeze out as much risk reward per trade as possible with realistic targets, obviously, right? So you guys can see every single trade that I've taken here. This trade in specific stands out for me on GJ because that trade made me 3 times my risk. And then this other trade made me 4 times my risk on GU. And then as you can see, I had a bunch of GU wins and then 1 golden loss and then 1 GU win last night. So these are 2 trades I took last night, which my worst trade of the month so far had been that gold trade from last night. The best trade is this GU trade down. In terms of my account, here are all the trades that I've pretty much taken so far. As you can see, I have a withdrawal there for $8,000. I have another withdrawal there for $8,000. And as you can see, it says withdraw. And as you can see, it says withdraw and balance, what you can see there. So here are all my results so far for this month. So for 10 trades that I've taken, I was able to make roughly $24,000, and this is after my $12,000 withdrawal that I have here, right? So I did move and everything else, so I decided to withdraw a little bit of money so I can pay for some of the expenses of buying new furniture, setting up Wi-Fi, everything else. So now my biggest trade isn't these trades, right? This is a trade I took last night. So this is my biggest trade right here, is these 2 positions. These were both on GU. This is the trade that made me about 4 times my, I don't know why the camera isn't focusing, but this is a trade that made me 4 times my risk. And then, this is a position I decided to close partial profits on GU. So, pretty good for the month so far. I have a $12,000 withdrawal and I made a $24,000 profit, and I'm currently in a position here on GJ, which is in profit. It looks like it's gonna hit my first target soon, actually. So if it does hit the first targets, I'll update you guys, midway through the video. But I literally just called this signal out a few minutes ago and it went straight into profit. So let's see how this trade does, but I'm not gonna be including this in the P&L so far for the month because the trade obviously isn't closed anything. So before we actually get started with the breakdown, I wanted to update all of my followers, all of my subscribers, what's going on. So after a long time of coming up with this decision, I have decided to actually delist my online course, so it will no longer be for sale 1 week exactly from today, being September 15th. So anybody who currently does have access, you will continue to have access after it's delisted. Anybody interested in it, you can already find a bunch of value from that online course. I already have a bunch of successful students who already took the course and actually started making their money back and made their investment back from what they invested in the course, plus way more on top of that. Just take a look at my student Chow, for example. You can go back into my YouTube channel, look at my history, and you can see all the videos, or the video that I did with him with the interview. He's only 18 years old and he's been taking my course for the last 2 or 3 years and was able to make $30,000 in the span of 2 weeks. That kid is setting himself up for a very bright future, I can tell you that for sure. And you can just take him to be an example. I have so many funded students. Literally, you can go through my Instagram. You can literally go through my Instagram and look at like every funded student that I have. Like there's literally a highlight just for all the students that have gotten funded. And I actually stopped posting on that highlight too as well. And then you can see here, another one of my students actually made $16,000 from his FTMO account, which is super dope. But you know, I don't want to take up too much of this video. Just know that I have a bigger, better project that I'm working on. It's going to be coming very soon. I want to be able to provide more value than just a simple technical analysis course. I want to be able to set people up, you know, have a one-stop shop pretty much, for everybody to become as profitable as they potentially could be and find their real potential in the market. So anyways, on to the rest of the video. All right, everybody, so pretty much what I'm going to be going over again is going to be the worst trade of the month and then the best trade of the month. So even though I took a loss here on gold, it wasn't necessarily a very bad loss, right? Again, I only lost 1% on this specific position. But what really upset me about taking this trade is normally I always try and wait for 1 a.m. to take a position for the H4 close. Because again, even if I enter a trade at 1 a.m., we're still 2 hours before we're expecting volume to really come into the market. And if I would have waited for that, then I potentially would have gotten a way better entry, right? So when it actually came down to me taking this position, we have our previous market structure highs being right here. And what I did see was price reject the highs, form a little bit of a lower high, and then this is where I decided to actually enter the market after this bearish variation pattern actually formed, which again is very, very early for my entry type, right? Again, you know, we're hours before session, which is something that I typically tend to not do. On this day, again, you know, I literally just moved into a new house and everything else, so I'm a little bit excited and I'm trying to get things done as fast as possible. And that definitely affected me psychologically when it came down to making this decision. But when it actually came down to the trade itself, right, one thing that I did notice is that the stop loss is a little bit tight when I'm looking at my overall resistance level being right here. So tight stop loss is 1. And as you can see, it's just a simple me getting wicked out of the trade and then price going in my favor and hitting 2 times my risk. So that was the worst trade I've taken so far. So what I learned from this specific loss is that I need to be more patient with my entries and try and trade as closer to session as possible, because if I would have just waited a little bit longer, then I would have saved myself a whole percent on my trading account, which again really isn't a big deal at the end of the day, but it's an unnecessary loss that I did end up taking, right? I could have waited. I would have seen this rejection, probably gone down to a 15-minute time frame, seen the consolidation, seen the rejection, and probably gotten in somewhere after the candle close here, which I would have had a higher reward, and then the risk would have been roughly about the same, but I would have increased my reward while at the same time keeping that same amount of risk. Notice how I just went from like a 2.4 to a 3.4. That's a whole extra percent that I could have gained. These are the trades that really matter. You know, those little extra risk reward ratio points definitely help. But when it comes down to the best trade of the month, it's going to be this GU trade. So something that I really like about my trading is that my risk reward ratio will always compensate no matter what. So these are again both signals that I did call in the signal room. Now when it actually came down to me looking to take this GU long, what I was looking at was price rejecting the highs again. This is a level of supply and demand that we've been taking in the signal room for quite some time. We've been taking buys off of this level, we've been taking sells off of this level, right? We took multiple sells throughout this level over here in this range and caught it almost all the way down to here. So when it came to, let's actually start off on the higher time frames. So when it came down to the daily time frame, and once this daily actually ended up closing above support, right, price came all the way back up. And again, you know, once price rejects support, you have to ask yourself, you know, what's the probability of price traveling to this level versus price traveling to this level, right? These are little things that you expect and pick up over time, right? Now, initially with this momentum in price, I did end up taking a long up to this area over here, which we did catch that move, and we caught this entire move. So this is what we're going to be paying attention to. Just kind of wanted to get that out there. So now when it actually came down to the daily time frame, on the daily time frame, price had ended up closing above our level of supply and demand over here, right? So you could see, right, this is early signs of rejection, right? This is early signs that support has been formed and support is actually being held. Not just that, right? This is a weekly level of supply and demand, which we're going to be looking at in the future as well. But notice how price ended up closing under, came right back above, and then had another retest and a rejection. So this is typically what you want to be waiting for when price does things like this, right? When it breaks under support, it does a fake out, comes back above, wait for price to come back down into the area where you could look to continue to take price long, wait for the rejection. Once you start seeing rejection, then you look to take price in that same direction. Always wait for a retest, right? A retest will be the perfect confirmation for you to continue to take that position. So again, this same setup that we saw here on the weekly is what we're looking at here on the daily. Price broke above, came back down, retested, rejected here, and this is where I look to get in on the next trading day, because it's not going to happen within the same trading day. It's going to be very rare. You have to let these candlesticks actually play out. And this trade, as you can see, took a few hours. Entered around London session, and I do believe the take profit got hit around maybe 6-7 p.m. I don't necessarily remember too much, because I remember London session was actually shorts for this day. So that's the daily time frame. So what I looked at again on the daily was that we already had a big rejection to its support. And again, you know, if price already rejected support on the daily, what's the probability that it's going to continue to trade higher on, you know, the following trading day? I would say it's a lot higher than price actually continuing to go down. Now, when it came down to the 4-hour time frame, again, what we see is a little bit more information, but it looks roughly the same as the daily, where we have this big rejection to support. What I also did see here was that notice how this candlestick was in quotations big, and then this candlestick was in quotations small, right? We're going to use these very simple terms just so you guys can kind of understand a little bit better, right? What this is showing me at support again, right? What's more important is where price is trading at, that's giving us this pattern, because this wouldn't be so important if it was, again, like right here, right? So what this is simply showing me is that price is losing momentum to the downside. Sellers aren't as strong, and there's clearly buying pressure within this area, right? Once I saw that signal, and then we had this divergence on the RSI, right? So how I can explain RSI divergence a little bit quickly here is that notice how with price looks like it actually made a lower low, where price did close lower, but here on the RSI, price actually closed a little bit higher. It's not the strongest divergence. I don't really take divergence into consideration too much, but it's something that I did note down in the journal as well. So once price actually had given me this very weak closure with the sell, or with the bearish candlestick, what I looked for simply was an entry on this hour time frame. Now, when it came down to the hour time frame, what I did see is that price made highs over here, and price actually broke above these highs in the result of new highs, right? So price broke above these highs here, price broke above these highs. So initially, every single time frame is going to have its own market structure. Notice we have a high there, we have a low here, we have a lower high here, we have a lower low here. Then this is supposed to be our lower high point. Once price actually made a lower low here and then traveled up and made a higher high, that is a break of structure, which are things that we look at these levels. We look for structure breaks, right? So if I were just to mark this off, we have a lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, higher high. And again, this is going to be considered a higher high because this high pierced and broke above this high, reaching a higher price. That is a very simplified and dumbed down version. Now, I'm not going to buy price when price is in quotation super expensive. I'm going to wait for a discount or a pullback. And this is where we could use the Fibonacci tool to help us. Now, the Fibonacci tool doesn't necessarily tell us where price is going to reverse, but I like to look for at least a 50% or a 61.8% discount. Again, the bigger the discount, the better the reward. This is where I like to look to enter, and it also matched up with our level of support. And again, once price actually broke through this level of structure, all I simply waited for was for price to come down, gave me a retest, and then look for that rejection, and then that's when I could take a long position. So I could have potentially taken a long position either here after this bearish or bullish variation pattern. I could have taken, or I did take a long position right here. Right, as you can see, this is where I actually ended up taking the trade. Now the stop loss, I didn't put it down here because I felt like that was very unnecessary. I felt like once price actually started breaking above and started trading down here in this column of price at 137,400, we'll leave it at, I felt like the trade would have been invalid. So I decided to set a pretty nice, decent stop loss because again, what's the probability of price traveling all the way back up to our level of resistance where we have huge selling pressure, right? Notice the reaction that we got from this area from sellers, right? Price came to this area, gave us a very strong sell signal and sold off almost immediately. And again, you know, the amount of pips it sold off to, it sold off 137 pips, which is huge move, right? These are things that we want to look out for. And again, you know, it's the same thing when it comes to the buyers. You know, we have a huge bull run right here from this level. So these are things that you want to be paying attention to when it comes down to certain levels. You know, you want to look at the reaction you get from the different sides in terms of buying and selling, and then you want to look at the level itself. So hopefully you guys did understand that breakdown. So again, stop loss under support, take profit, resistance, and we held throughout this entire thing. I personally did not hold till 4 times my risk. I closed somewhere around this area up here. So, you know, I could have potentially squeezed out an extra 23 pips, but I didn't want to hold. You know, I was, you know, with the whole move and everything else going on, I just felt like, you know, it was best for me to close because I have so much going on. So, and on top of that, I had made a few losses back. So again, you know, that's just one thing about my system, is that my risk to reward ratio always compensates, you know, for my losing streaks. And I do have losing streaks, especially in quarter 3. And that's just me being transparent with you guys. I'm always going to perform my best quarter 1, quarter 2, and quarter 4. Now that we're coming into quarter 4, I'm starting to see way more winning trades. I'm starting to see way bigger moves. Quarter 3 has always been a bad quarter for me historically, and that's just me being as transparent with you guys as possible. But hopefully you guys did enjoy this breakdown. Again, you know, you could find all my links with the link in the with the description. All my links will be there. If you guys have any questions, you can contact me directly on either Instagram or Telegram. You can also join my free Telegram for more free content like this more often than just my YouTube channel. Anyways, peace out, guys.